Hi book lovers, and welcome back to Blatantly Bookish. I'm Marissa, and today I'm going to be doing a review of Marbles, Mania, Depression, Michelangelo, and Me, a graphic memoir by Ellen Forney. Now, this book was by far the most illuminating book into mental illness that I read in the month of March. So for those of you who don't know, in March I was doing March Madness, trying to spread awareness of mental illness and mental health in the month of March. I will leave one of my videos up there if you don't know what I'm talking about, but if you do, you will know that I read a whole bunch of books in March about mental illness and that this was by far my favorite. So, just before her 30th birthday, Ellen Forney was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and this memoir chronicles the struggles she went through in accepting her diagnosis and the years that it took in finding the right combination of medications and mental and artistic stability. As an artist, she is interested in the concept of the crazy artist, and many artists throughout the years have suffered from mood disorders, including Vincent van Gogh and Sylvia Plath, and suspectedly Michelangelo as well, hence the title. But she asks questions like, does medication suppress the natural artistic sensibility? Does it squash creativity? Or can one be medicated and mentally stable and still be an artistic genius? So I truly believe that this book would not have been as successful if it was not written in the graphic memoir format. And I'll give you some examples of what I mean. So something like this, just a page with "You are crazy." Now, I don't know if you guys can see, in fact, I'm pretty sure you can't, but all of the scribble-scrabble behind the "You are crazy," okay, I think you can kind of see it now. It says, "Let's take a look at the symptoms," over and over and over again, and that's also the inside cover. It says, "Let's take a look at the symptoms," but they're all squished together and kind of hard to read in this section. And then here, over all of the symptoms, it says, "You are crazy." And this is when she has the realization of her diagnosis, that where the symptoms are leading, and showing her that, well, she at the time views it as "you are crazy." So I just think that's a really interesting way of showing that realization. So another thing this book did so successfully via illustration was really showing manic episodes versus depressive episodes and what that means, because I think somebody who hasn't really gone through a mental illness wouldn't necessarily know what those things feel like, and I think the way it's illustrated in the book really helps the reader, regardless of their history of mental illness or not having a history of mental illness, what that could be like. So this is a page of Mania, and you really, on the manic pages, there's quite a few of them, you really see there's a ton going on, it's hard to follow, you don't know where to start. They're very busy pages, and visually they're just all over the place. Her mind's all over the place, we're all over the place, and I think it's just a wonderful illustration of mania, especially when you take that in contrast with some of the more depressive pages. So this, for example, is a depressive page. There's so much more ordered. Things are often neatly in boxes, or in this case, in lines. A lot of beds and couches are displayed. There's a lot of covers, and the pages just make you feel they're very blank, they're very cold, and you really just get a sense of the difference between this and how she felt before. Another thing I liked about this book was that it actually taught me some things about mood disorders, but in a really inventive and interesting way, and of course in a very visual way. So this was my favorite section of that. It shows a mood disorder as I don't know if you can see it, shows a mood disorder almost like a carousel ride. So you have, you're very, very up, that's mania, you're very, very down, that's depression, but it really illustrates that there's all of these things in between. Hypomania, which is like somewhat up, and dysthymia, which is somewhat down, but not really depression exactly. And then even something called rapid cycling, which the poor person looks like they're holding on for dear life going up and down. So I thought it did a really great job of illustrating that it's bipolar and mood disorders aren't so simple as, mania, depression, but it has all of these things in between, just like a carousel. Another educational spread includes a technique for breathing that helps calm her down, which is really helpful. And there are other spreads that talk about DSM, criteria for diagnoses, and things like that. But it's all done in a really fun kind of way, and I mean, how can you go wrong with infographics, which is basically what they are. Another page that I found very useful for somebody who has mental illness, somebody who doesn't have mental illness, somebody in the healthcare profession, really any of the above, is this page with all of the expenses that she has to pay for just for having this mental illness, and this is all just one illness. So she writes it up like a little receipt for all of her medications, a psychiatrist, potential hospital stays, and even other things like vitamins and supplements, yoga classes, things to help her have a, healthy state of mind. And I think it's important to realize that, if people don't have health insurance or you don't have good health insurance, this is all coming out of their pockets. And as it says in the little dollar bill, ironically, this is not a disease for an artist's budget. So I think this book has wonderful insights on mental illness. I think it's a great book if you are newly diagnosed with a mental illness, or if you're just interested in the concept of mental illness and its potential connection, or lack thereof, with being an artistic genius. And I think at the very least, this book is great for anyone who feels like they don't understand what someone with mental illness is going through, because it really breaks it down for you visually, and I just thought it did a brilliant job, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. So please let me know in the comments down below if you've read this book. What did you think of it? And do you plan on reading this book anytime soon? Yeah, so I look forward to seeing you in another video soon. Bye!